Let's change this to something bigger. I'll use this because this is usually what I use during the day. I have there's a file when you use R locally, there's a file called R profile, which you can like set your preferences in and stuff. So I have a preference that during the daylight, this is the theme I used. And in the evenings, it turns to a dark theme. So I'll go with this for this week. So the data set that we're working with is in an Excel file. So we're going to use the read Excel package for reading that in. We're obviously going to use tidyverse for our data wrangling, and we're going to do very minimal text analysis, this unnesting tokens business. So we're going to split our video titles into words. So that's what we're going to use tidy text for. So let's go ahead and read our data. So since it's an Excel file, the function that I'm going to use for loading that in is read Excel. And the data file is here in the same directory as my R Markdown, so I can simply refer to it. If I put quotation marks and then I just hit tab, it allows me to pick the file that I want, so I don't have to type its name. So I'll show you one more time. So here I know that that's going to be a character string, and then I'm hitting tab to find the file name, and I will call that videos. And so let's go ahead and, I can't find the function because I did not load my packages yet. All right, now let's load this in and let's take a look. It looks like we posted 73 videos. We have information on the week, the video number, the title of the video, which unit it is from, and then the minutes and seconds. And we also have the URLs to like the YouTube Media Hopper and the slides, that we're not really going to work with the URLs as part of this exercise. So I'm going to set those aside. So let's take a look at videos per week. So let's say that I want to count, so given that this is my data set, I want to know how many videos were posted per week. How can I, which variable will I need to use for that, or which function? How would you guys go about doing that? Any ideas? Group by week, okay. And then what? And then count. So let's see. So let's go ahead and say videos, and then we group by, oops, week. And then you said count. What would I count? So when we use the count function, we need to give it another variable to count. So we're in the right kind of the frame of mind is correct that we want to group by week because we want some numbers by week, right? But if we think about it, each row represents a video anyway, and week happens to be one of kind of the categorical variables. If you think about it in this way, of we want to figure out how many videos per week. So the week number, we're not really thinking about that as a numerical variable, but a categorical variable. So really what I want to do is count the occurrence of weeks in each of these groups. So actually this group by step becomes redundant then, because count basically groups by and then counts things. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to change things. So the console is here on the top, which I think will make it a little bit easier to see. All right. So we can see here that we can basically do count the occurrence of various week values within each of the weeks is what this is telling me. So how many rows per week? So we can see that week 7, we had the most number of videos, but that was the week, if you remember, we did the data science ethics unit where we had a lot of optional videos from kind of like guest speakers, if you will. And so that's why there are a lot more videos that week. The next thing we might want to look at is lengths of videos, okay? And if we take a look here at the lengths, the way they're encoded is we have the minutes and then we have the seconds separately, but I'd really like to bring these things together. So what I want to do first is to create a new variable. So to do that, I'm going to use mutate and I'll call it length. And so if I want to get to the total number of minutes, what I could do is, I guess there are many ways you can do this, but we can first figure out how many seconds that is, and then divide it by 60 would be one way of doing it. So if I do this, and usually when a function that I find really handy that I've mentioned before is relocate, when I'm looking at things interactively to see so that it brings this variable to the front. Does it make sense that 2 minutes and 36 seconds is converted to 2.6 minutes? I think it does make sense. So I'm happy with that. So now I will actually write over this data frame, and I can get rid of the relocate so things are in the original order that they are. Okay, so next what I want to do is, oh, bizarre coloring here. Let's open this file again. Okay, next what I want to do is kind of look at the average and total lengths of videos per week. So for this, I can do maybe group by week. And then if I want to calculate averages and totals per week, which dplyr verb should I use? Does anyone remember? Summarize, exactly. So I would do summarize, and I want to do a total, and I'll say that's sum of the length, and I want to do an average as well. That would be mean of length. So here we have the weekly totals and weekly averages, okay? So the next thing that I want to do is visualize these data. So I want to make two bar plots where heights of the bars are these total and averages, and then basically bring them together where we can see on a weekly basis what has been happening. There are two ways I can think about doing this. One way is I will make the two separately and then using something like the patchwork package, put them on top of each other. Another way, the way that I personally think about doing data analysis a lot is, can I keep things in a single data frame and make use of things like faceting? Okay, so if I want to keep things in a single data frame, but then I want to make sure that I have one plot for totals and one plot for averages, that means that those indicators of whether it's a total or an average has to appear in a column. So I need to create a separate column. Does that make sense what I mean? So in order to do that, I want to have a column that just has the numerical values and another column that has an indicator for whether that number is a total or an average. So in this case, I am taking this wide data set and making it longer. So I would do a pivot longer here. Okay. And the columns that I want to pivot are the total and the average. So the columns that I want to pivot are the total and the average. There are many ways I can say this. I can say total to average. That would be one way of saying it. Or I can say everything but the week. So depending on which one is less work, you might consider writing it one way or another. The names of these variables, so the words total and average, will go to names too, and I will call that, I don't know, measurement type, maybe. I always have a bad, hard time coming up with what those names should be, so I'll use this as a placeholder. And the values, so those are the numerical values in that column, can go to something like length. So then the measurement type and the length will tell me what these data are about. So now for each week, I have two rows. One of them gives me the total and one of them the average. Okay. So now I want to turn this into a visualization. So I can actually pipe this into ggplot, right? On the x-axis, I want to have my weeks. And on the y-axis, I want to have, so the lengths of my bars will be the lengths. I cannot spell this word. And then we want to say, so let me ask you guys this question. I'm trying to create a plot, a bar plot, but I'm not asking ggplot to do any counting for me. I already know what the heights of those bars should be. Those are going to be the lengths. Which geom should I use for that? Yeah, exactly. Geomcall. So we would do geomcall. Okay. And the other thing that I want to do is I want the length and the average plots separately. So that would mean that I want to facet. So I'll say facet wrap by measurement type. Let's see what this gets me to begin with. Okay, so something like this. I think the first thing I want to do is stack these plots on top of each other. So let's say I want to put them all in one column. And then what else might we do here? So a few things that we might do is, first of all, I don't like that it's only labeling 3, 6, and 9. So ggplot2 does a really nice job of figuring out like what things to label. And if you have numerical data, it makes sense that you don't label every single one of them. But really, in this case, we're not thinking about week as numerical data. We're really thinking about it as categories. So I want to convert that to categories. So I might actually do a mutate step before I even plot my data. So now it actually labels all of them for me. I could have done it manually changing the breaks as well. And that one is not more right than the other. But oftentimes a useful way of thinking about data is thinking about, is the variable type really how I want to use it? And if not, can I play around with that? Other things that I might want to do here are probably changing out the labels, right? So I have week, length, a title would be nice, something like lengths of pre-recorded videos in IDS 2020. If we want to place two figures side by side, how would you go about that? So I'll answer that question here as well. So we'll do that. We'll do it that way too, Purvi. Okay. I wanted to show you guys one last thing about pivoting that we hadn't really talked about before. And this is mostly because it might be helpful as you work on your projects, or also to show you that we have covered a lot of stuff in this class, but we really haven't gotten into the depths of all the possibilities with these functions. So in Pivot Longer, we've used these before, since this is the bare minimum you have to supply to it, but we can do more. You know, we can also transform these names. So oftentimes the variable names are in kind of more computer speak. We keep things lowercase, snake case, whatever. But we might actually want to make some changes. So there's an argument called names transform. And what it does is, so let's take a look at where names transform occurs in this topic. So over here, it says, for example, names transform, you can give it a list, and then you can change the type of the variable using a particular function, okay? So I'm going to say, I want to give it a list. The names I want to change is weeks, and I might say str to title, which makes things title case. So now those are basically capitalized for me. Okay, so that gives me something a little bit nicer. Usually whenever I make one of these plots, another thing I like to do is, for no good reason whatsoever, add a little bit of color to it. And soon as you add it, it adds this legend, which is not that necessary. So then we can turn off our legends. This is really what I wanted to highlight. How do we turn off legends? I want to turn off the fill legend, so I can say fill false. So if you have something like that that you want to do. Now, another approach to this without doing this pivoting would have been, so this is with pivoting, right? How would I do this without pivoting? So I'm going to go ahead and get these summary statistics again. And let's go ahead and say, I'm going to save this as video summary. And I'm saving it as a different data frame because I don't want to overwrite my original video's data frame with these summary statistics. And let's say that I want to have a new plot, which is basically from this video summary. I can probably copy from here a lot of things. So let's see what I can copy. what do I have here? ggplot. I need my new variable name. Sorry, my new data frame name. Oh, how about we do this too? Mutate, what was it? Week equals as factor week. Why is our lengths? We can fill by the week. We're not going to facet this time. What does this give me? Oh, let's go ahead and take a look at this. Did I do something wrong? Did I do something wrong? What do you not like? Video summary. Oh, I don't have a variable called length in here, do I? Video summary has things like total and average. So this is one. And so we can call it total lengths of pre-recorded videos in IDS 2020. And then we could do the same thing. I'm going to save this as P1, as P2, where I can say this is average. And I can do average lengths of pre-recorded videos. And that gives me that. Okay, the axis scale is changing, as you can see. And then I want to use, in order to be able to put plots together, I want to use the patchwork package. Let's go ahead and load that. And then if I say put them next to each other, this would put them next to each other. What did I forget again? Can you guys see what my issue is? P1, P2, put them next to each other. Here we go. So this is how I could put them next to each other. The function to turn to title case is str to title. So that's from the stringr package. With the patchwork package, it's also easy to do things. So I think this would do on top of each other. Okay. All right, so the last thing I want to do is the text analysis bit. So if I go back to my original videos, I have a column called title, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the unnest tokens function. So this is the function that we introduced in the text analysis video. I want to create words, and I want them to be based off of the variable called title. So, and why don't I do this so we can take a look at it together. Title doesn't exist. Oh, sorry, because it gets rid of it. How about we do a view then? Okay, so here are basically the words from our titles. So the first video was called Meet the Course Team. So now I have 4 rows for that. The second video was called Welcome to IDS, and I have 3 rows for that. So it basically makes this into a long data frame where each word is a row. Now, what we might want to do is see what are some common words that we have in our videos. What would you guess is the most common word in the video titles, if you had to guess? IDS, maybe. Let's see if the course is the, so it might be something like that as well. So let's go ahead and count the words and sort it by, so that it's in descending order. Data is the most common word. With shows up very regularly. I think it's because keeping up with IDS. Did anyone get my joke about what the keeping up with comes from? Are you guys like already too young to know what keeping up with the Kardashians is? Is that like a very passé time? That's what I was going for. Okay. All right. So, one of the answers was the word the, right? Which is a really good guess because things like that happen really regularly and they're not very meaningful. So one thing that we can do when we unnest the tokens is there's this concept called stop words. And so we can say, and this tidy text package has these stop words basically stored. So we can say, let's get rid of them. What did I do wrong here? There is no package called stop words. Oh, I need to install that package. So tidy text calls on this other package called stop words to make these available for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and install that package. I hope that doesn't take a really long time. All right, you can do it. And the stop words are things like the, and, with, so on and so forth, which are not going to be so context relevant, but they occur very regularly. So this allows us to basically get rid of them. And we're doing an anti-join to get rid of them. What else we could do? We could think about which words happen regularly in each of the units, right? So let's see how things have varied across units. And soon as we have this data becomes somewhat difficult to kind of sort through. So I'm going to instead visualize it quickly. So let's say on the x-axis, I might want the word. On the y-axis, the counts, which is the n, and then I can do a geom call again, just like we did before, and I will do a facet wrap by unit, and maybe let's say since there are 5 of these units that I split these data into. Oh, I'm making a ggplot, so I should use a plus instead. Okay, so what's happening here is that it's trying to, because I'm faceting, it's trying to plot, first of all of the words that were counted. So we really don't need all of the words. We want the most common ones. So let's say that I want to slice my data for each group. I want the ones that are on the top, so head, 5 of them, the 5 most common words, let's say. And now we have the 5 most common words, but ggplot2 by default for our facets wants to keep the same scale. So I can say free the X scale, maybe something like this. So now we're seeing something a little bit more reasonable. I think I would prefer to swap the X and the Y here. And then maybe let's just free all of the axes. So now we can see per unit what the most common words are, and maybe we can add just a little bit of color to this just to make it a little bit more pleasant to do. So we can basically see what the most common words are, but mostly what I wanted to kind of give you here was that we can do this unnesting tokens business to take a look at words from text and then anti-join them with stop words to take a look at words that are actually useful for us to take a look at. And you can see that we also have some of these words that are like that appeared actually only once. So chances are it would have been better to filter for things where n is greater than 1. Just because otherwise we're not really looking at something all that useful if it appears just once. Okay. All right. Any questions about what we did? So I know that many of you might not have watched all of the videos for this week just yet, especially because you're focused on your projects. As I was thinking through what's remaining of the class just this morning, and I'll email the class about this later today, is we do have our weekly quiz just on Sunday, but I think I'll just push that deadline to Thursday along with the homework. If you've watched the videos and you want to actually do it, that's great. But otherwise, if you want to focus on your projects and then take the weekend off, but then come back to things before it's too late, I'll just put that deadline there. You're obviously welcome to do it by Sunday if you prefer to do so. I'll post the quiz after the code along today. All right. Any questions about what we just went through or anything from your projects?